Hi, in this video we are going to learn more about writing and using constructors. As you know, class constructors create objects, giving them a mix of data and behaviors, which are known as attributes and methods. For example, here is a person class with a few attributes, a constructor, and a couple of its methods. Calling the constructor will create a new person object, assigning initial values to its instance variables. At any given moment, you can talk about the state of an object, which refers to the values of its attributes at that time. For example, if you were to describe the state of person 1 right now, you'd say that it has a name of Aaron, an age of 28 years old, and a height of 70 inches. The constructor sets the initial state of an object, so let's take a closer look at how that happens. Here's that same statement from the previous slide that creates a person object. It calls the person constructor with a few arguments, name, age, and height. This is the person constructor from the person class written out. And lastly, a visualization of computer memory locations. When the person constructor is called, memory is allocated for the object, and the associated object reference is returned and stored in the variable. Then the argument values get copied into the parameters, which are used to initialize the instance variables used for the object's attributes. And thus, you have used the constructor to create the initial state of the person1 object. As you look at this constructor, you might be wondering, why are there ones at the end of every parameter name? This logical question leads to an important note about constructors. The names of the constructor parameters must be different from the names of the instance variables. This has something to do with a concept called scope, which you'll learn about later on in the course. For right now, just know that while it might seem silly, the parameter names must be unique. And one more important note about constructors. The constructor can set the initial value of an instance variable within the constructor itself, instead of using a parameter. Let's say that in your program, all of the person objects have the same age of 16. If this is the case, you can set the initial value of the age instance variable to 16 within the constructor rather than using a parameter. This ensures that all person objects are assigned the same initial age value. Alright, back to our original person example. After the creation of the object, you can change the state of the object by changing the values of its attributes, which is often done using the object's instance methods. This is now a new state of the person1 object. Sometimes you may come across a class that doesn't have a constructor, and yet you'll still be able to call it and create a new object. That's because when no constructor is written, Java provides a no parameter constructor, and the instance variables are set to default values according to the data type of the attribute. This constructor is called the default constructor. Here are a few of the common data types and their default values: int, 0, double, 0.0, boolean, false, objects null. Regardless of whether a constructor is explicitly defined or not, you can describe the relationship between an object and its instance variables as a has-a relationship, meaning any state of the person1 object has a name, has an age, and has a height. You can even use other objects as attributes, like a job object that contains specific data and behaviors related to a job. For example, here is a job class that can make job objects. It has attributes like title, company, salary, and location, and methods like getDetails and updateSalary. If you want one of these objects to be an attribute for a person object, you can include it as an instance variable in the person class and as a parameter in the person constructor. Let's take a look at how this could be implemented.